Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast, where we connect, engage, and empower fathers to be the best dads they can be for their families and communities. And now, your hosts are Bruce Stapleton and Pastor Eli Williams.
Oh, hello, friends. Pastor Eli here with the Fathering Strong podcast. We're so glad you joined us. And I'm delighted today to have as our guest Susan Brown. Susan is one of my heroes in the world of fatherhood work. She occupies a special place in fatherhood lore, being the director of a child support agency. Now, those things sound contrary, right?
Counterintuitive.
Yeah, she's a female. She is passionate about fatherhood, and she's a child support director. That got my attention right away, and I'm sure it will those who are watching and listening today. So welcome, Susan. We're so glad that you joined us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor and privilege to be here, and you're one of my heroes in father advocacy as well.
Well, I appreciate that. We typically start, Susan, by asking our guests to share a little bit about themselves and particularly their father story. Everybody has a father story. What was life growing up with or without their father? What impact that had on them? Before we start talking about our work or even our own families, let's learn a little bit about you. So take it away, Susan. Tell us your father's story.
I will. And I'm the director of Franklin County Child Support, and I've been director here since 2007. But I started my career in child support in 1997. So working on close to 30 in child support, and so my father's story. My parents were married over 40 years, and when I think about my father, who passed in 1990, I think about his warmth and his humility, his patience, his wealth of knowledge, his skills, and more than anything, his humility and how he helped and treated people. And my father was a hard worker. He was a maintenance foreman at American Cyanamid in Somerville, Bound Brook, New Jersey, for over 40 years. He was loved and respected by his coworkers and, of course, by his family. And I credit my father with my strength, my confidence, often my fearlessness, and optimism and independence. And my father was a builder. He could fix anything, and he taught those skills to his kids, which really helped us become self-reliant and independent. So one story that I remember about my dad, which isn't particularly spectacular, but we had a small cabin in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, just over the Delaware River, where I grew up in Somerville, New Jersey. And back then, you could buy land in a cabin or small structure for not much money. And given the heat and humidity in Somerville, New Jersey, as a kid, the mountains were a welcome relief. So the cabin, however, was really dilapidated, and my father had to replace everything down to the framing, and that included the roof. And so he replaced the shingles on the roof, and while I was only 6 years old, he had me driving nails into shingles on the roof. And it seems simple, but it's really one of the fondest memories that I have of my dad. And we did so many things together, the roofing and other home repairs, but much to the dismay of my mom. who would much rather I did domestic endeavors. However, because he had me do those things, because he had me on the roof, I became fearless as a kid, and it really helped my confidence. And I think it really helped me as to develop my leadership skills as an adult. So I guess I'm a testament to the fact that engaged fathers have a positive effect on their daughters.
That's beautiful. It's a great story. Yeah. And that sort of laid the foundation then for you and your passion for fatherhood.
Yeah, yeah, and for I think for public service and for really caring about people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very good. Now, I purposefully did a blog post on
Hmm.
child support because I thought it would probably be a good idea to give our
Hmm.
audience and those who read my weekly blog some background on what child support is, the child support
Hmm.
system, how it's structured, the
Right.
purpose for it, and all of that. So you had a chance to read through that?
I did, and I think it provided a really good overview, and it was very honest too, and it described your experience and how often people feel about the child support program, which to some extent is justified.
Yeah. Yes, it's still reform needs to take place. And there have been changes. There have been improvements in the
Hmm.
child support system, even since, in the almost 5 decades since I had my experience with child
Hmm.
support. And that's all good. And you have been a part of the changes that have been made. I don't know about nationally, but at least in
Hmm.
Ohio and certainly in Franklin County.
Yeah.
So why don't you share a little bit about your work there and your agency's work in Franklin County, which for those of
Okay.
you who are not Ohioans, Franklin County is where Columbus, the capital city, is seated. And so that gives you a sense of what Franklin County is. It's a very big county,
Hmm.
a part of and Columbus is a very big city, which is probably the biggest city in the state of Ohio.
I believe now it is,
Yeah,
uh, with 1.3 million people.
yeah. So tell us, if you will, about your work there in
Okay.
Franklin County.
All right. So again, Franklin County is a child support is a metro agency. It's very large in scope. We serve 102,196 parents and 75,295 children. We have 64,775 open active cases, and last year we collected over 139 million for in child support payments, which is a critical income source for families.
Yeah,
But our fatherhood work um, has we've been assisting fathers for decades, but the focused work for us in Franklin County started around 2010 when a colleague of ours that Glenn Harris,
yeah,
a local fatherhood advocate, and now with ODVN, scheduled a meeting with me to talk about our relationships with fathers and also about the Columbus Urban League's Father to Father program. And that discussion actually led to a long-term relationship with the Urban League and also with other community partners. Father to Father is no longer running, but it provided that conversation, that relationship, really provided a new lens in how we see our fathers and how we interact with our fathers. It also led to collaborating on now an annual Empowerment Day event, where we and other community partners come together in one large venue and provide one-stop education and resources about all the county HHS and community services, as long as, and as well, at some of those events, we provide license reinstatement and capias withdrawal. And in 2020,
let's talk about that for just a minute,
okay,
because that was pivotal. That relationship that began with you and Glenn and the father, that changed how Franklin County Child Support Division or agencies started to approach your work with fathers, which previously had been all about collection, correct?
Right, pretty much. I mean, we have been helping fathers. We've always been referring fathers to employment programs and things like that. But it really was the catalyst that started the transition from collection-based case management to individualized, human-centered case management.
Now, that was quite the evolution.
Yes.
Right? And as far as child support nationally is concerned, I think that made you a trailblazer, did it not?
It did. And it was interesting too, because there was a lot of other programs were a little bit perplexed at what we were doing, because we started looking at, some of the initiatives that the child support program was doing, like the pizza boxes with the posters on them, and the wanted posters and things like that. And we really started taking a critical look at ourselves and seeing that this is a detriment to families, and it's not a benefit to families. And it's interesting because during that first conversation with Glenn Harris, and he tells this story all the time too, I said, well, what can we do today to make a difference? And he said, well, first thing you can do is take those wanted posters down out of the lobby. And Glenn said, Susan picked up the phone and said, pull those wanted posters down. and we did that day. Yeah. And we actually within a week or two replaced those pictures with pictures of fathers engaging with their children, and pictures of fathers playing on the playground with their children, and just very positive images, positive inferences that you can be successful. When people would come into an agency and see wanted posters, they felt like they were doomed before they even got started.
Yeah.
So it's a interestingly enough, it was a father advocacy group, a father advocate that started the conversation here with us. That even though that mindset was beginning to permeate, it really jump-started things for us. And we had an opportunity to do Empowerment Day with Glenn at the Urban League and the King Arts Center, and started really having conversations with dads and how they felt and what their challenges were.
So you moved toward humanizing these fathers,
right?
And doing more to assist them rather than being the evil empire, as I have put it.
That's right.
And the fathers have become the bad guys when, in fact, a different, more human approach could probably result in better collection results. Did you find that at all?
Oh, absolutely. That an equity-based child support program will increase father's earnings. It'll increase payment compliance, improve parental engagement with their children, and even improves public perception of the child support program. So, and it's not, it may not necessarily result in a one-time hit payment. It's because that's what the punitive remedies sometimes do. Mm-hmm. Is that person will be able to come up with a payment to avoid this negative consequence, but it won't be sustaining.
Right.
So even though, building these relationships and providing services related to social determinants of health, you're establishing a foundation whereby the father then can make sustainable payments over time. That it may not be the full amount at first, but we're moving towards that father not only being able to support their children financially, but some emotionally, and also helping to support themselves.
Yeah. So let me just talk to the audience just for a minute. This is why I love this woman. This is why I call her a trailblazer. She really is a hero in fatherhood. Now, Susan, have you had any opportunities to share with other child support directors in the state of Ohio and even beyond, share with them your experience and what you've learned?
Yeah, so probably over a decade ago, actually over the past 13 years, the agency has been the grantee of 7 state and federal pilot grant programs. And Franklin County has aggressively pursued federal grant opportunities as they're a source of funding needed to evolve the program. The funding allows us to develop and test different child support strategies and interventions to replace many of the outdated practices that have proven to be detrimental or disproportionate or have a disproportionate impact on many of the families we serve. So 13 years ago, we received our first behavioral economics grant.
Behavioral
economics. And that's really the study. If you think about traditional economics, you think about people will take all the information that they have available to them, and based on that information, they're going to make the best decisions possible based on all of that data and that information. Mm-hmm. But that's not how the human mind works. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of psychological factors that play into people's decision making or their choices. Things like choice overload, or people will make choices based on the current trends at the time, or so.
Well, this is how my parents did it.
Yeah. So kind of like in conformity. So really, what behavioral economics is, it provides you a flashlight in the dark about human behavior. Mm-hmm. And it started because it's like, well, we do have all these great programs. We have a program where people can get their order modified, or we have a great fatherhood program, or we have a great employment program, but people won't participate in them. Why is that? And through this grant, we were able to work with MDRC, which is a national social research firm, and other research partners to learn the psychology behind people's behavior. And so we found out, using our modification process, which is the most bureaucratic, convoluted process that we have in the child support system, that if we simplify that process, if we provide case management to help navigate through that process, we increased our participation rate by 30%.
Wow,
So,
that's
yeah,
huge.
it
So
is.
again, to put it in simple terms
Mhm.
for our audience, she's talking about, um, for instance, a father whose child support, in his view, in his opinion, is too high. He's paying too
Mhm.
much. He can't pay
Right,
it because his income is not
right,
enough to be able to make those payments.
right.
So as an example, so there is a process by which that father or mother, whoever
Mhm.
the obligee is, can then approach the child support agency
Apply,
and
yeah,
request
yeah,
a review
right,
of their order
right.
based on the current circumstances to determine whether or not that child support order can be modified in such a
Mhm.
way as to make it more doable, make it
Right,
more possible for the
right.
father or the parent to be able to make the child support payments on time and in full.
But
So
it's a
that,
very complicated process. I
yes,
mean, you first have to ask for a modification, and then you will be sent an application. You fill out the application, and you have to fill it out correctly, and you have to send it back. And then once you send it back, then you'll get another financial affidavit that you have to complete, which is also kind of complicated. But if we're able to simplify those forms, if we're able to provide kind of a case manager that can help you guide through that process, and simplify the process wherever possible, then it's kind of like going down the slide rather than going up a ladder. It's just, people are able to, it's kind of also like the FAFSA form, the federal financial aid form.
yeah.
By simplifying that form, so many more students are able to get financial aid. So it's the same thing. And
Except I've got to say though, except that father he's either
yeah,
terrified or he is
right.
angry and he wants
Hmm.
nothing to do with those people
Right,
downtown there on
right,
child
right.
support.
Yeah, and if that's how he feels, then likely, like, why should I even bother?
Right.
And then things don't get better. That kind of leads us into another one of our research trials was procedural justice alternatives to contempt. And each one of these grants I could talk about. It could be a separate podcast.
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm gonna try to simplify this. But what procedural justice is interacting and communicating with our residents using procedural justice principles, which are respect, voice, understanding, helpfulness, and neutrality. So if we teach our staff to use all of these principles, then the resident who we're communicating with will begin to trust us and trust the system and trust that we're here to help and we're not here to punish or to oppress. So, and to make a long story short, procedural justice alternatives to contempt was a way to, if someone is not paying their child support, then we get a referral. If all other administrative remedies have failed, we get a referral to send that case to court for on a motion for contempt or failure to pay their child support. So what we did is we took all of the cases that were referred using random control trial, and one went procedural justice route and one went traditional contempt route. And the ones that went the procedural justice route received specialized case management. There was negotiation between both parents to find out the core cause behind the non-payment, to find out the core cause behind the animosity between the two people. And we were really problem solving, helping to facilitate problem solving on the individual and family level, rather than just sending the case to court, going before a very intimidating judge, expecting you to state your case, in front of the judge and everybody that's in the courtroom. It's a completely different dynamic and process. And although it didn't result in a huge amount of collections, it resulted in a great deal of relationship building and trust. And to the point where some of our fathers became very close with their case managers, in that when they did get a job, they didn't really have a support system outside of the child support program. And we became their support system. Like, yay, and congratulations. And, we celebrated together. So
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and if anyone's interested, out on the federal website for the Federal Office of Child Support, all of the findings from that grant are there, and it's very, very interesting. And we also learned a lot about the demographics of our residents who were being referred for court, and that led us to do further analysis, even beyond the grant, that we found that individuals in poverty were the most likely to experience those punitive enforcement actions. And it really has to do with their ability to pay rather than their willingness to pay. So that was enlightening to us too.
Yeah. Well, that's such important work.
Yeah.
Such important work, because the people who could least afford to suffer yet another consequence of their poverty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those folks need more help, more support than they do another hammer being dropped on them.
Right. And, we don't, there are certain cases where certain actions are appropriate, but you have to be able to discern the difference. And I think if a lot of programs look at their low income residents, the $200 to $300 orders, that's the pipeline to criminal non-support.
Yes.
And there's much of what we do is discretionary, and much of what we do needs to be thoughtful about, in how we proceed with our actions. Yeah.
Yes, and you're blazing a trail that I personally hope that is followed by those who are also in the child support.
So I would say on the federal level, we're in lockstep with the federal philosophy right now, and there's a huge movement and changing the approach.
Thus, the change in the name, removing the collection part of it.
Exactly, and even our federal office has already removed the enforcement out of their name as well, because we do so much more now than just collections. For example, just even going back to our relationship with Glenn, it got to the point where we had so many partnerships with the Urban League, with Action for Children, with community-based corrections, with so many other programs that we found a need then to hire a fatherhood coordinator within our agency, and his name is Joe Scrunchen, and he happens to be, and Kim Dent, the executive director of the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood, he's she's actually Joe's mentor. So yeah, so but Joe works with these different organizations. He does presentations, and he also does individualized case management. And as we continue our conversation, one of the success stories that we have is that that our change in approach has really led to many success stories. And just recently, Healing Broken Circles, which is a program within our community-based correctional facility, Kendra Hovey sent Joe an email thanking him for his human-centered approach with fathers in the program, and thanking him and how appreciative and admittedly surprised the men were at the men in the cohort were at the timely and efficient responses to their questions. And she mentioned that he knows that they're not used to anyone caring like that. She used some more figurative language, and not really giving, but caring. And she said that, a quote that I'd like to repeat. She said that it's really the big little things that make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no doubt. Well, I'll want to get from you at some point contact information for Joe. We'd love to have him on. We've had Kim on, and also Glenn Harris.
Yeah.
And now that I know that you have a fatherhood coordinator there, we certainly want to get him on the podcast to have him share his experiences and his passion for fathers as well.
You're right.
That's a lot to absorb. We're going to take a minute for a short timeout, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you about other collaborations that you have in Franklin County as you work toward your excellent work with fathers. This is the Fathering Strong podcast. My guest today is Susan Brown, and we'll continue our conversation after this brief timeout.
We dads and father figures need each other. We need a safe, non-judgmental place to share our stories, challenges, heartaches, and joys. Fathering Strong is just such a place. A new online community of connected, engaged, and empowered fathers. Learn more at www.fatheringstrong.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Fathering Strong podcast. I am Eli Williams, and Bruce Stapleton is on the other end, the man behind the curtain. We call him the Wizard, who is making things happen for us. My guest is Susan A. Brown. Susan is the Fatherhood Director. I probably am getting your title wrong, but you are the Child Support Director for Franklin County, and a trailblazer in the fatherhood space, and we are just excited that you've joined us today. Susan, you shared quite a bit about your approach to working with fathers, to serving them beyond the role as the agency that's responsible for collecting child support. You also, I think, just very powerfully and just very effectively are working with fathers to be of service to them. To help them to be able to fulfill their responsibilities and so forth, and to have a voice, to actually have an ally in the government in the realm of fatherhood and the financial responsibility that brings. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Franklin County was a part, or has been a part, or maybe is now a part of the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood's community mobilization effort.
Mm-hmm.
My county, I led my county in that in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And if I recall, Franklin County was a part of that cohort, or maybe the year before. Um,
Yeah.
what impact did that have in Franklin County? And do you still indeed have a mobilized county involving other agencies and other entities in the community who are
We
interested?
we do, but we're that's um, facilitated by another organization, another fatherhood organization. Although we're looking at centering that work here at Child Support, but we haven't done that yet. But we're definitely a part of that coalition. I, you know, I want to give a little bit of background why Franklin County is a little bit unique. We're really, really fortunate to operate in an environment that is really strongly supported by our county administration and board of commissioners. And since 2018, the county has provided intensive and comprehensive training on cultural awareness and history and the fight for civil rights and equity. And in 2018, they started a very intensive training program for the directors through the Racial Equity Institute that looked at or taught us that how important it is to analyze the root causes of disparities and disproportionality. And we realized through that training, that through the 70s and 80s and 90s, many of our program policies were shaped by stereotypes and biases that still exist today. And some of that is like assignment of rights and credit bureau reporting and several other things. And also our work is driven by the Rise Together blueprint for reducing poverty in Franklin County that was released in 2019, and where Central Ohio Columbus is experiencing growth and prosperity. We also realize that people are experiencing poverty, and that is spread throughout the region. So all of the work that the HHS counties do within Franklin County revolve around this blueprint for economic mobility and family stability and equitable access to opportunities, jobs, housing, health, and supporting work, and supporting our youth. And as a result, we have a very strong partnership with our HHS One Door, which provides comprehensive kind of one door approach to providing services to our residents. So, and what that means is that if we're talking to a father about whatever issues that they may be having, we also have who else is in your household. Do you have enough food? Are you able to pay your rent? Are you, it's and we coalesced together to be able to provide, like I said, those, all of those services that a father might need to provide stability. Because if you don't have stability, then you can't go anywhere from there.
Right.
So, but the partnerships that we have, probably first and foremost is that Franklin County One Door. And with that, we have mobile units that we use to go out into the neighborhoods. And so in that mobile unit would be child support, would be job and family services, would be office on aging, would be office of justice policy and programs. So pretty much any issue that a family is dealing with, we're all there. to collaboratively solve problems. There's also a men empowerment network in Franklin County, which is is run by Job and Family Services, but we've referred 50 fathers there so far. For, again, these are total wraparound services. It's not just employment, but it's, all the things that address the social determinants of health. We have a great solid partnership with Jewish Family Services and Fred Points to provide employment counseling, job coaching, Action for Children, Columbus Urban League, Urban Family Development Center. For family safety issues is Center for Family Safety and Healing. We have a partnership with the Ohio Department of Rehab and Corrections and Legal Aid of Central Ohio to provide holistic services, wraparound services.
Wow, that's quite comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a network. Now, I didn't hear reentry. Is that something that also you partner in?
Yes. We partner with our Office of Justice Policy and Programs, and they have a reentry task force. They provide a myriad of services for people reentering into the community. But we also partner with them to make sure that we address any child support issues, license reinstatement, any barriers or obstacles that might be there as well.
I think I heard a reference to mental health and addiction. Often that's what's driving the social and health issues with some fathers.
Right.
So you have a partnership with.
Well, we have the. I'm blanking, but we do. We have partnerships with where we could refer fathers for mental health services, but we also sometimes it really depends on each individual father's story. They may be depressed because they're not able to see their kids.
Right.
So maybe it's the Father Up program or the Father Factor program that might help them to navigate those systems to help them get a parenting plan. And by the way, we also have a mediation program through Access Visitation. Access Visitation is a federal grant program that provides funding to the states to provide access and visitation services for parents. So what we've applied, and we are a grantee of that funding, and we provide mediation services where anyone with a child support order can meet with a mediator to negotiate a customized parenting plan and a customized child support order. And they do that.
Is amazing.
And they do that free of charge.
Yeah.
And we do that, and we do all the filing for them. The problem is mostly is that the mother and father have to come to a meeting of the minds, and they have to agree to a parenting plan. A lot of times these agreements fall apart because the parents just can't get along. And the more that our fatherhood groups can talk about the relationship with the co-parent, and because the better relationship with the co-parent, the more engaged likely that father's going to be with the child.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, but just the fact that you have that program, and you have that grant,
Right.
is exciting to me.
Yeah.
Um,
And we also, I want to mention two other grants. We have the Youth Economic Mobility Grant, which is also a federal grant that provides peer-to-peer education to youth. So it's kind of child support prevention,
mhm.
where our peers who are young parents themselves talk to youth about the importance of completing their education, of getting into job training, of having a job, and being in a healthy, committed relationship before you have children. And they convey their experiences and their challenges that they've encountered in order to help youth to make better decisions. Yeah.
Wow, you really do have a lot going on there,
Yeah.
and it's all important. It's
Yeah.
all important.
And the last federal grant we currently have is Safe Access for Victims' Economic Security, and that is a federal grant that provides resources so that we provide safe access to child support for victims of domestic violence. So we do that as well.
Did I hear co-parenting? Do you have any co-parenting classes or something like that in the community?
We through Father Up and Father to Father, not necessarily jointly. I'm sure there are, but we don't have joint co-parenting classes. But the Father Up and Father Factor definitely talk about that relationship,
Yeah,
in co-parenting relationship.
yeah,
That and I'll use a Carlos Christian quote that better to be an ally than an adversary.
yeah. No doubt, no
Yeah,
doubt. Do you think any of them are using the On My Shoulders curriculum for
I
relationship
I'm
building?
not I'm not
Not sure
sure.
about that. Okay,
Yeah.
but that's one that I
Hmm.
know of that does have an emphasis on the relationship building between
Hmm.
parents, whether or not they're romantically involved anymore
Right.
or ever.
Right.
That's really a lot, Susan Brown. I'm telling you, we could do a whole series of interviews because there's so many
On like one
that are so
grant.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. We're going to take our final time out. And when we
Okay.
come back, I'm going to ask you the advice you would give
Okay.
um, to a father who is experiencing issues with child support. The three important things for that father
Okay.
to know. This is Fathering Strong. Eli Williams here with Susan Brown as my guest, and we'll return after this.
Do you know a new father who could benefit from a basic introduction to healthy fathering principles? POPS 101, a free online course consisting of 4 one-hour sessions in English or Spanish, could be perfect for him. POPS 101 lays out practical steps toward becoming the protector, order keeper, provider, and stabilizer his child needs. Learn more at urbanlight.org.
Welcome back, friends. I'm Eli Williams. This is the Fathering Strong podcast, and we are rounding third and heading for home, as Joe Nuxall used to say on the Cincinnati Reds broadcasts. My guest is Susan Brown, and she has shared just a wealth of information about her work and her agency's work in Franklin County around fatherhood. A real trailblazer she is, and that agency is. I want to kind of wrap things up with you, Susan, to let you get back to your work by asking you, what would be the top three things a father needs to know? It could be a mother,
Okay.
when it comes to child support. What are the top three?
Okay. All right. So before I get into the top three things, I do want to say this, that we want to see parents engaged in their case. They should understand what is happening and why, as well as in that process that they're being treated with respect throughout the process. And we want residents to ask questions when we have them and let us know if there's issues that need to be addressed. And one of the biggest issues that we see with fathers is that they don't show for their appointments or their hearings. And that results oftentimes in a child support order that they may not be able to pay or may not be able to sustain. However, if they participate and they relay what's happening in their life, it's going to have a real impact on their child support order, because we're going to take that into consideration. Because our hearing officers, and their case will be heard before a hearing officer rather than the court. The hearing officers will take, whatever life circumstances that they're experiencing into consideration in establishing their order. So in discussing this podcast with our fatherhood coordinator, Joe, I asked him what are the 3 things that he would want fathers to be reminded of, and he gave me 4. So,
all right, we'll take 4.
Wanted to remind everybody again that mediation is available in Franklin County. So if you can put your differences aside and put your child in the center of your discussion and agree, then you could get a customized child support order and a parenting plan that is going to meet the needs of your family. And then secondly, we have multiple resources within our outreach department if our fathers are experiencing any life issues. And quite honestly, if you're in another county and you reach out to the child support program, they can often help you with other things because they are affiliated with other HHS programs. So if you're having food insecurity, housing insecurity, you're having problems with utilities or something, don't just let those things go. Have a conversation, and you're likely to get connected to resources. Communication is key. Communication is key with your case manager. And if you're asking for a review of your support order, don't forget to include all of your children under 18 on your order or modification paperwork so you can get credit for that other child support that you're paying. And he finally wanted to remind that fathers are more than just a number. They're essential to a child's development. And I think that brings us full circle.
Wow, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has really been an information-packed session, all of it very important information, and we are so glad that you availed yourself to come on the podcast to share it with us. I will be in touch with you about further conversations.
All right.
I'll look forward to getting information about how to contact Joe so that we can get him scheduled as well to talk about his work there in Franklin County. So thank you so much.
That sounds great. And thank you for the opportunity today.
So if someone has a question for you as a follow-up, what would be the best way to reach you?
It's just give us a call. Our phone number is 614-525-3275. And just they can even ask for Joe.
Excellent. Yeah. Appreciate it. And I want to remind folks that we do have a blog post that is on the topic of child support, things you need to know. You can find that at urbanlight.org. That's www.urbanlight.org. Just click on the blog posts archive, and that one will pop up as our newest one. Also, these Fathering Strong podcast episodes are archived on our YouTube channel. urbanlight.org, Fathering Strong YouTube. Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you all for being a part of today's podcast. We do appreciate it. We'll see you next time on the Fathering Strong podcast.
Fathering Strong is powered by Urban Light Ministries, a not-for-profit organization serving the needs of families and children for nearly 30 years. Your support helps us continue turning the hearts of fathers to their children, while meeting some of the immediate critical needs of struggling families with small children. Contributions of all sizes are welcomed at www.urbanlight.org.
The Fathering Strong podcast is a production of Vermilight Ministries, with technical assistance from the Momentum Group, and Harold Rayford provides the theme music. So thank you for listening.